Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us at our webinar and workshop today. There's still a lot of turmoil in the world, but out of chaos comes opportunity, change, creativity. What we're looking at is the change that is driving the outsourcing industry. 95 billion pounds last year, according to Statista. Driven by the fact that a lot more people are working remotely, driven by the fact that there is a much greater likelihood that companies will outsource their work. But with that, you get a lot of issues related to quality. And that's what we're here to do and discuss today. We're here to discuss, first of all, a quality assurance framework that we at buildze have been using for quite some time. And also, in part two, to help you actually drill down into what it means to embrace a quality assurance framework. So in part one, we're going to be looking at quality. We're going to be looking at the fact that quality is a right, and we're going to be also helping you to define your own ideas for your quality framework. But in part two, it's going to be a deeper dive into the quality framework. Quality is a right, just like fresh water, clean air, happiness. It's something that everyone deserves. Every business deserves to have a quality deliverable, especially if they're outsourcing. We help by defining needs, monitoring, and helping companies to adapt quickly. But specifically, what we do is we offer an end-to-end quality assurance management process, something that is driven by automation and human beings. Why? To make it accessible, because quality typically demands that you have a bunch of people doing a lot of work and not enough time, and that increases costs. And costs are the enemy of any small business, of any startup. My name is Segun Osu. I've been an entrepreneur for 15 plus years. I've created 2 startups. One of them involved online procurement and outsourcing for tech and tech teams. That then transitioned into the company that I currently lead, one of the companies I currently lead, which is called G2 Guide, that offers offshore team selection and project management. And more recently, buildze, the sponsor of this event, that puts a much greater focus on the use of automation to bring down costs, but at the same time, automate quality control processes and make it, that is quality assurance, much more accessible to many more people, many more businesses. I've launched multiple products with remote teams, working with multiple startups to help them deliver software, web, mobile apps, mostly on time, within budget, and to the required quality, but always using an agile framework called Scrum. And this is also at the heart of the buildze quality assurance framework. And before that, I was involved with larger companies, a company called Gartner. I worked there for 5 years, leading their technology vendor marketing division across Europe and Eastern Africa. And I'm interested in outsourcing. I've had my first introduction to outsourcing on a train traveling in Italy when an American couple in 2002, 2003 gave me a book called The World is Flat. And they were basically trying to tell me something. They're trying to tell me, okay, that you would be able to work using the internet from anywhere. Now, many people can't remember a time when you couldn't work from anywhere using the internet. Well, in 2002, 2003, that was the case. You didn't know that you could do it. But today, it's second nature. My second interest is Agile. I love Agile. I wrote a thesis on Agile, and I've never looked back. I use it for most of the work that I do, and it's one of those things that just keeps on getting better over time. Now I'm going to hand over to my colleague, who's also going to join me on this journey today with you, His name is Alex. Alex, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, it's me Alex. So I'm got a background of a technologist. So I've worked as architect, technical architect on a number of projects, and recently been running my own consultancy, focusing on actually assuring technical assurance of large enterprise projects. I worked with home office, cabinet office, and banks and stuff like that. So I provide this very high level assurance, which is not just testing, as you'll see today. And yeah, I've also had I've started 3 startups and have one as well. And yeah, I've worked with a number of outsourced teams, offshore teams, and yeah, I can share some of my experience with you today.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you. So the agenda today is really simple. We're going to talk about the work that we have put into basically creating an agile assurance framework, something that we're going to share with you today to help you on your journey. We're going to talk primarily about the key components of that framework. We're also going to talk about quality a little in general, but as Alex mentioned, it's not just about testing. It goes way beyond testing. We're going to make it interactive. We're going to ask you a lot of questions as well, and there's going to be a lot of opportunity for Q&A. That's part 1. Now, in part 2, which is not today, okay, we're going to help you build your own quality assurance framework, something that is unique to your organization and that uniquely addresses the challenges that you face. So, for example, just to give you an example, one of the unique things about every organization is the relationship that they want to create with their development experts, their software experts, for example, for which you might need a certain type of legal agreement. So that's one thing that we can help you with. And this is offered at no cost and with no obligation, obviously. And there are 6 places available at the moment for part 2. So we're going to ask you to tell us as quickly as you can now whether you'd like to attend. And you know, Alex, if you can kind of put that up, that way people can choose to attend or not to attend, so to speak. So we'll just give you a few minutes to do that. And by the way, part 2, we'll be using slightly different software to make it more interactive, and it's going to be one-on-ones basically, and very small groups. So we have 6 places for one-on-ones, and then we have 2 small groups that we're going to offer.
Okay, good response.
Oh, you want that? Okay. That's hope we have enough spaces. Well, if we don't, we can create a few more, I'm sure. Okay. So you know, we are, as I mentioned before, you know, we're going way beyond testing. You know, the world of work has become significantly less predictable than it used to be. There's much more complexity, things moving much more quickly than they did in the past. There's tons of innovation out there. And when you are planning a new website, a new mobile app, a new piece of technology, you might have an initial idea in mind, but by the time you finish building it, those requirements have often changed. They've often changed and you've frustrated your software development expert or team. And one of the things that we aim to do with our framework is to put that degree of to minimize the degree of frustration that your team or expert would experience, because we build in, you know, the idea of change into the framework itself. So complexity, innovation, yeah, you could argue that they're impossible to plan. It's impossible to predict the future, okay? But it is possible to have a framework that allows for the future to happen, because requirements are dynamic. If you want to build something that has longevity built into it, or if you want to build something that has a return on investment, that generates a return on investment that matches your customer requirements, you should have a framework that encourages this. You should have a framework that allows you to do this. And it's just one of those things that is a pressing need for any business today. The fact that change is inevitable in the 2020s, you think about projects. Projects typically have a defined start and a defined end. A product, on the other hand, which is where the framework originates, is dynamically evolving. It has requirements that are not static. Those requirements change over time because the needs of your customers change, the reality of your market changes, your competitor response to what you're to what you're building, to what you've introduced into the market changes, and you've got to keep pace with that. You have no choice. And if we think about quality and the fact that it is really around, the foundation of quality is fitness for purpose, but quality is in the eye of the beholder, just like beauty, just like many things, value, for example, it's in the eye of the beholder. But fitness for purpose is forever changing. You've got this whole idea of fitness for purpose, which we think is often associated with quality, okay? It's never static, it's changing all the time. And things like cost, things like timelines, they remain static, they're objective. These are things that you can relate to and that you can communicate easily to people. But fitness for purpose, it's in another dimension, just like, as I said, beauty and value. And you've got to be ultra clear, you've got to be ultra precise, but more importantly, you've got to have the ability to change your mind, because if you don't, you'll be stuck with an initial definition that doesn't quite hold water anymore, and that doesn't quite give your product the longevity that it needs in the marketplace, doesn't drive the ROI that you need, doesn't satisfy your customers, doesn't meet the expectations that they have. Your customers are today accustomed to possibly 2-3 clicks before, for example, placing an order for a particular product. Tomorrow, Amazon comes along, introduces something that resets that expectation. That is the definition of quality that you need to be aiming for. And you need to be tracking that, and you need a framework that will allow you to track that. So quality is one of those things that is going to need to iterate, it's going to need to change over time to reflect the dynamic nature of the beast, and to reflect the fact that no two people have the same idea of quality. No two people, no two businesses, no two customers will ever agree on what constitutes quality for them today, because ultimately by tomorrow that same definition would have changed, that same understanding could have changed. Now, I'm going on here a bit about quality, but if we also think about the bedrock of quality, which is obviously testing, we need to have testing in the equation as well. Alex, do you want to say just a couple of words about functional and non-functional testing, and the way that some of the teams that we've come across in the past address the two?
Yeah, of course. So the quality starts from your requirements, really, for what you're building. As Segun just mentioned, could be somewhat dynamic depending on the kind of market. So it's and the kind of the current expectations from the customers. But there's what we found quite often is that those non-functional requirements is sort of the dark matter of all things. They got quite overlooked easily, but they're very important. So what do we mean by non-functional requirements? This is all things to do with scalability of your app, security, usability, and all that sort of stuff. So these are all important. These are important to be at least identified or kind of shaped about when you start your project. Because they just come back if they're not clearly defined and bite you. So yeah, it's just to kind of show the importance of looking thoroughly, not just the functional requirements, what your product does, but also how it does it, right? And whether it's got any sort of a compliance, regulatory reg compliance requirements as well attached to it. So this is all part of this framework anyway. So just a small remark.
Okay, thanks, Alex, for digging down there. So, if we again come back to this whole idea of why we are interested in quality assurance, it is because we need to monitor the processes, the methods, the ways of doing work that have been proven to deliver quality in the past. At buildze, we've got this framework. We've used it in other businesses. It works, but we also recognize that requirements are not cast in stone. They're dynamic, they're evolving, they're changing all the time. And this thing that we call an agile quality assurance framework recognizes this. It enables organizations to actually recognize that change is inevitable, and it enables organizations also to support the prioritization and the definition of quality when required, and of course to make sure that communication happens proactively with the right documentation, the right understanding between the parts that need to be communicating, and of course that management is done in the right way. So reporting, impact analysis, and that you're able to adapt to this new reality that might be a new requirement. So nothing is static, it's evolving all the time, and it is, sorry, that's my alarm, and it is never static, basically. So if we go straight into that framework itself, so we've got some really funky hexagons here. This is really the meat of the discussion today. This is what we're hoping to provide you a bespoke version of in part 2. And if we think about first things first, okay, as a business, when you are defining your requirements, your basic needs for a new product, a new piece of software, a website, a mobile app, you've got to be ultra cautious. You've got to think first and foremost about the business objective, then about the product that you need, and then about the technology that underpins that product, and then about the team, in that order. You can't start with the expert or the team, because the expert or the team is biased. The expert or the team wants to implement technology that they're familiar with. They want to do things that they're comfortable with that may not quite correspond to your business needs. So you've always got to prioritize what your business needs first. Don't let the tail wag the dog, in other words. Begin with your business requirements first. That's just a word of caution, prioritization. Make sure that you begin with your business needs first, okay? Your business needs, as I keep on saying, will change. Your requirements will change, okay? Your requirements will change because your competition, your clients or customer requirements will change. Everything is in a state of flux. The world is too complex for things to stand still. The static world belongs to, I don't know, 50 years ago, okay? Nowadays, things are moving too quickly for you to even begin to think that your requirements will not change within the 2 to 3 months that it takes to build, for example, a new mobile app. Everything is in a state of flux. If you have the wrong starting point, if you have the wrong definition, you are following the wrong plan. And, you know, I've got tons of stories about, you know, companies that have started work on, you know, with this, what I call a project mentality instead of a product mentality. And they've come unstuck because they follow a path rigidly, which is the wrong path. And they end up with something that the market doesn't want. And the reason the market doesn't want it is because things have moved on. But I'm not going to get stuck with that story yet. I'm going to move on to technology and the fact that if you have defined your product, okay, you have a number of choices. You could use, in the case of a mobile app, some of the more expensive technology, or you could use some of the less expensive technology, so-called no-code or a progressive web app. Now, in both cases, okay, your primary goal is to build, in most cases, sorry, your primary goal is to build, you know, the so-called minimum viable product. And both tools might achieve the same objective, okay? Now, if you're building a minimum viable product with native code and it's going to cost you 100K to build the same thing with a PWA, you could spend maybe 10K. Which one would you go for? I know which one I would go for. And we've got a recent client who came to us with the need for a minimum viable product. Their initial idea was probably to spend something like 30 to 40K to build something using the iOS platform, to build something for the iOS platform, which is Apple, of course. And what we're telling them really is that what they really might need is what we call a PWA, progressive web app, which is significantly less code. It is not low code or no code, which would cost even less, but it is significantly less code. All they need, okay, is a product that will enable them to raise the money that they need to build their fully fledged product. That is their definition of fitness for purpose. It's to meet the needs of their investors, to see something that works and that is a good example of what is to come later, that can be polished, that can be improved upon, that can be built upon. So that's just one example of where, you know, again, you want to begin with the business need, you want to begin with the objective. In this case, in the case that I just now gave you, it's the need for an investor to see something that works, but not necessarily to see the finished product. Moving on from that, okay, once you've chosen your base technology, and once you've got an idea of your base technology, because again, even that is subject to change, and I'll come to why in a moment, okay? Once you've got that in place, you've got an idea of what type of technology you need, you're now in a better position, a stronger position, to begin to think about what kind of expert you need. Do you need an expert that understands native, or do you need an expert that understands PWA, or do you need an expert that is simply a good HTML guru? You don't know yet, okay? But you will know once you've defined your MVP and you've decided that you're going to go for a PWA or you're going to go for native. And you've got to put on a beauty parade. You've got to line these teams up. You've got to be ruthless about it, okay? And you've also, at this point, got to be ready to iterate. You've got to be ready to put one team in, okay, that will take part in the so-called discovery process, okay, but build into your agreement with that company the fact that they may not be chosen to complete the full development build. They may simply assist you during the discovery process, okay? And again, it's down to the fact that, you know, within this framework, what we're aiming for is quality. The last thing you want to do is select a team based on multiple criteria. You've exhausted the criteria that you can use to select your team. You've done all of your due diligence, but then you find that you can't work with them for any reason. You want to have a provision in your agreement, okay, that allows you to use them for that particular purpose, pay them the going rate, okay, but then have the option to appoint a different team. Now, we are in many respects looking at this from a, what you might call an agile discovery perspective. The ability to iterate, even in terms of the team that you select, which is quite innovative, quite new. Okay, but within this framework, it is incredibly important that everything that can change, okay, you should have the ability to change it if it relates to quality. And this is just one of those things that can change. You can have, in our case at buildze, what we do, okay, is we put together a beauty parade that might attract dozens of development experts and teams. And from that 12 or 20, shortlist, we bring to our clients 4 to 5 that we know can do the work, that have done similar work, and that fit the criteria perfectly. But during discovery, okay, we will appoint one team. That one team will share everything that they discover, everything new that the client wants, everything that might, for example, give the other teams an option to learn more about the client's requirements and to refine their estimate of how long it might take, to refine their estimate of the cost. They will share that information with everyone. But bear in mind, we've only appointed one team at that point. That one team, okay, has an opportunity to impress the client. They have an opportunity to deliver. They have an obligation, on the other hand, to share information with all of the other teams that we shortlisted. That way, those other teams get the option to update their quote, update their time frame, update their bid, and it's an iterative process that the client then enjoys that allows them to select the best qualified team, the best team to achieve their definition of quality. And that process is incredibly important within this framework. The next item, the next hexagon, I should say, is this idea of, the next hexagon is all about planning, obviously, okay, but it follows on from discovery. It follows on from the process of discovering fully what you want to build, the nitty-gritty of what you want to build, the flesh and bones of it. This provides you with an initial plan, okay? You get this initial plan as part of the output of the discovery process. You get to clearly explain in the plan what you are looking to build, who you're looking to build it for, why, and what the benefits that will be obtained from it are. You put this information into a list. It's part of a Scrum framework, okay? And the list is called a product backlog, basically. The product backlog is a prioritized list of the work that needs to be done, written in the form of so-called user stories. This plan, because it is a plan, is incredibly important because it provides your development team with the opportunity to put together their own list of work that they can do within a set time period. And again, we're talking about the plan here, and set time periods at this stage are incredibly important. So you've got yourself, the client, putting together a so-called product backlog. You've got the team deciding which items from your product backlog are going to go into their own backlog of work for the next week or 2-week period, okay? And you've got a whole process in play here for planning that involves a daily meeting with the team, very, very brief, 10 to 15 minutes at the very, very most. And you've got a weekly, if it's weekly, okay, weekly or bi-weekly meeting with the team where they actually show you the work that they've done. So you're building this whole process into your framework so that every day you have an opportunity to influence quality every week or every 2 weeks. When you take part in the demo, you have the opportunity to see the work that's been done and comment on quality, and again, influence quality. Alex, at this point, is there anything that you'd like to add before we move on to the next hexagon?
Yeah, no, it all makes sense if people are familiar with the Agile Scrum. It's all based on Agile Scrum, but I think the key takeaway here would be that Agile guarantees that flexibility for your development, and in order to achieve that good quality that's based on Scrum, you need to have some good alignment in the culture of the team that works, and expect them to work in Agile way. So yeah, I'll just say that.
Okay, so that's planning, okay, or the plan, so to speak. Now we've got just a few questions for the audience around. Alex, you've got the questions if you want to.
Yeah, let's start with very quick poll on whether you work off some sort of a framework, or you have something in place that guarantees the quality at the moment. Okay, so we got almost everyone. Let's just give another 6 seconds. Okay, so share the results. Yes, as we can see, that's I have to say that's very typical, especially working with offshore teams. Yeah, and that's something we set to solve with our system and builds. Okay, so I'll go back.
Okay. So the next point on our agenda, the next hexagon, okay, is all around people and responsibilities. And if you think about it, clearly, it's the top person in your organization that needs to be involved, because quality and the responsibility for quality, okay, resides with the business owner. It resides with the CEO. Now, the CEO may want to delegate, they want to do all sorts of things, but ultimately, okay, that person needs to be the sole representative. They need to be the sole point of contact between the team doing the work, or the expert doing the work, and the organization that wants the work done, and the stakeholders, the people that have a vested interest in the outcome. And they need to proactively, okay, work with the team to define and communicate to the team their definition of quality. And I keep on saying this, it's an evolving definition. It's dynamic. It doesn't stay static. This thing called the list of requirements, or what I called previously the product backlog, it's a list that needs to be constantly refined, constantly groomed, so to speak, constantly updated, so that the team knows what your new definition of quality is, what your new requirements are. It needs to be prioritized. It needs to be put in a certain order, so that the value that the CEO, the business owner, derives from this, okay, is at the very top. Each item that is of greatest value needs to be at the very, very top. So the team, as I mentioned earlier, is responsible for another list that they decide goes into the time-boxed period of time that they are willing to work and able to work to complete the list of items, the so-called sprint backlog. And that list is, it's not influenced by the business owner. It's the responsibility of the team. And the reason that we give the team responsibility for this is because it makes them much more, when you give people ownership, when you give people responsibility, they take it so much more seriously. It becomes so much more important to them to get it right. Okay. And however, at the same time, there is a lot of measurement going on. There is a lot of reporting, which we'll come to in a moment. Okay. But more importantly, okay, in terms of resourcing here, in terms of people, and this is where an organization like buildze comes in. There is a quality assurance monitor. And our role here, what we tend to do is we provide a monitor that is basically there to make sure that the processes happen, to make sure that the ways of work are completed in the right way, and also to provide, in our case, a lot of automation to reduce costs and increase quality. So to give you an example, and this is not currently available, okay? To give you an example, one of the features that we will provide in future is the ability to ask Alexa, how is my team doing today? What progress has been made today? What a way to shave off cost. What a way to reduce the burden that the business owner may face through the need, for example, to send an email to a project manager to get an update when it can be provided by Alexa. But that's an example of how we use automation. Currently, it's restricted to things like reporting, okay, automatic reporting. Currently, it involves bots on a platform called Slack, which we use a lot. So a bot, for example, will organize the meeting. A bot, for example, would take input from the development team. A bot, for example, would take information from our project management tool. We use Jira, and report back to the client, much in the same way that Alexa might. But in our case, it's written down as opposed to spoken. But Alexa is coming, even to buildze in future. I'm not going to ask Alex how soon, but Alex is the
very soon. Yeah.
Thank you. No pressure. Okay. So the next hexagon is really exciting for me anyway, because it talks about an area that is quite close to my heart, the contractual agreements. And again, we like to use the word agile. We use an agile version of standard agreements, because if you want to have the ability to change your definition of quality, if you want the ability to make sure that your definition of quality can evolve and is dynamic and is able to reflect market requirements and is able to reflect the new needs of your customers and allow you to generate ROI, return on investment, then you need an agile agreement. It's common sense, but you'll be surprised to see how many organizations do not use agile agreements, do not know what goes into an agile agreement, and have not thought through, okay, the quality issues that need to be captured by an agile agreement. And I'll just give you a few ideas, and again, like I said, in part 2, we'll be helping you specifically with your agile agreements, helping you to identify what are the key clauses, what are the key provisions that you need to include in an agile agreement, okay, to give you, let's say, the upper hand, to give you the advantage, and to allow you to work transparently and harmoniously with your development expert or team. Because by making sure that things are in an agreement and upfront, you reduce risk, you reduce the likelihood of conflict. But if you don't think about these things up front, if you don't think about them before you start work, you are at a distinct disadvantage. So one of the areas is, for example, risk sharing, okay? So if you are working, and everybody wants to work on a fixed price, if you're working on a fixed price, but a variable scope, one way to achieve this is through, the short initial phase discovery that I mentioned earlier, okay? So the discovery process, because it enables both parties, the company and the development expert or team, to better understand and de-risk the work. This is really, really, really important. And building a clause like that into your agreement is invaluable, okay? But it's not enough. You may wish to avoid contract tie-ins by making sure that you have a clear exit strategy. For example, protect your IP. It's not enough if things go wrong for you to decide that you want to part company. No, you need to part company with your IP, with your intellectual property. And it's clauses like that that will give you the ability to work harmoniously with the team and to make sure that everybody's on the same page before you start. And again, this is all with the objective of securing quality, enhancing quality, and protecting this whole idea of the ability for your quality definition to evolve and be dynamic over time. Another example might be offering structured payments to provide for an incentive or bonus payment if work is completed before the deadline. So let's assume, for example, that you pay your team £1,000 a month, just to use a simple figure, okay? £1,000 a month, and you're paying for 5 months of work, but you suddenly find that the work is done within 3 months. Now, if you do not have a provision in your contract to incentivize that, you know and I know that your team will work until the 5th month and possibly beyond. So why not incentivize it? Why not incentivize early completion? Why not pay them £4,000 for 3 months' work instead of waiting for the 5th month? Especially if you can launch early, and by launching early, okay, you extract more value from your product. You achieve the investor's dream of an early launch, and you get to test your product in the market sooner rather than later. You get to get all of that beautiful product market fit feedback. You get to iterate, you get to improve the quality of your product sooner rather than later. Why not do that? But build it into your contract. Another example is, again, this is a bit of a risk quality enhancer, but risk mitigator tactic, which is the idea of back-end loading your payment schedule so that the bulk of the payment is at the end as opposed to at the front. Now, again, this may sound like common sense, but the whole idea is that you want to build these clauses into your agreement from day one so that everybody's on the same page. There are no surprises for your team, no surprises for any party that is privy to the agreement, and everybody's happy. And the next item in our framework is this whole idea of management. Okay, did I say management? Yes, I did. Yes,
yep.
I did say management. And much of this is self-evident. Okay, there's an element of reporting. There's this whole idea of what we call impact analysis, and I'll explain in a moment. But more importantly for me, okay, it is the idea of applying certain values. Okay, now if you can apply certain values in your approach to management, then you can avoid doing what every expert hates being done to them, what every team hates being done to them, which is micromanaging them. You don't want to micromanage. What you want is to manage with certain values in mind. And the values that we often bring to our teams at buildze are the values of being open, make the work transparent so that we don't need to look after over your shoulder. Something called courage, which is, speaking the ability of any member of the development team to speak truth to authority, be critical where criticism is due, be open about it, be courageous. The need for everybody, no matter what age, what position they hold, within the team or between the team and the clients to show respect for each other. Now, a lot of this is common sense, okay? Being open, being courageous, being respectful. But it's only when you have this common sense being applied and being part and parcel of your management process that you get the kind of focus and commitment that is needed to deliver quality and for the team to actually take ownership of quality. Okay, so this for us is almost like a hygiene factor. It's got to be there, but oftentimes it's not there. And building it in is part of what we do with our clients and our development teams as well, as part of our service. Reporting. Now, the reporting I mentioned earlier, we apply a degree of automation to reduce costs mainly, but also to increase quality, because robots and computers, if they're programmed correctly, don't make mistakes, and they don't cost money if they don't make mistakes. And the idea of impact analysis is really recognizing that when a change happens, and as I've been kind of laboring the point of quality and the point of your product requirements being subject to change because of the changing nature of our markets, the changing nature of our competitors and their offers, and the need to pursue return on investment, which implies change, okay? You want to be able to track the impact of change. You want to be able to track what it means in terms of impact on delay, impact on time to completion. If you are going to make changes, there will be repercussions. If your product needs increase suddenly, then of course there's cost. But that cost is not just the direct cost that you see. There are also indirect costs. One of the indirect costs might be to something called the net present value of your project. And we will track these for you. Our system tracks this for you automatically, and it allows you to see what is your product now worth at any point in time due to this particular change that you want to make, which allows you to make better management decisions. Management decisions that are based on knowledge and insight as opposed to on a whim. So cost of delay, impact analysis, net present value, these are all parts of the reporting and management that we offer our clients, and that you can expect from a framework that we will design for you in part 2. Now, the next part of this framework is adaptation. And Alex, do you want to go into that? Because I know it's very, very deep, and it includes a lot of information around testing and a lot of information around the different types of testing and automated testing as well, which is really, really important, again, in terms of accuracy, quality, and reducing costs.
Yeah, so as you said, it's quite a deep topic. If you've heard about the term DevOps and the DevOps culture, it all comes from the Agile. The requirement to be really flexible in your development and responsive, right? So using the right frameworks and tools for your software kind of building process, you should really rely on the ability of releasing something in a matter of hours as opposed to days. So I'll just give a couple of examples without going too much into the specifics. So if you're familiar with testing, this is called the testing pyramid, which is used in software projects. And what it identifies is the different layers of testing that every software should go through. And you start with something called unit testing, which is the smaller pieces of software, etc., etc. But what it shows is the complexity, specificity of tests go up, and most of this stuff should be automated, apart from the very, very much lightweight manual testing that happens on top for any specific scenarios. And on the next slide, you'll see a typical release pipeline, which in modern software should be fully automated. And what it does effectively is any change to your code base, to the source code of software, triggers a pipeline that automatically takes the software, tests it, marks it, identifies it, etc., and effectively delivers it to the state where it's ready to be tested by, well, ready to be used by the client. So that's the ultimate kind of automation. So what this guarantees is if you always have working software, good quality, you never have to come back to your team and say, why did you break so many things? Which happened to me quite a lot of time. Yeah, so that's one of the techniques that's the adaptation part of the framework's using. So yeah.
Just wanted to say that the clock is now 7:23.
Thank you, Lucas. Thank you very much. Much needed reminder. Okay, so and this is why we have part two. Part two, we do a much deeper dive, and add more value to, our esteemed audience. Anyway, so we've come to the end, more or less. Okay, and as you can see, we've skimmed the surface of quality, but quality goes way beyond conventional testing, and a quality assurance framework is way more than just quality. It goes way beyond testing, way beyond quality. It's a way to monitor. It's a way to monitor your processes, a way to monitor the methods of work, a way to enable the dynamic evolution of your requirements. Okay, your requirements are not static. They're going to change over time. Just accept it as a fact, because if you want to remain competitive in the market, you're going to have to adapt, you're going to have to evolve, you're going to have to change. And if your contract is static, if your agreement with your development team is static, and you're changing your definition of quality, you're changing the definition of the product you want to build, you're going to create tension, and your efforts will be for naught, because you'll find delay, you'll find conflict, you'll find failure. Your management needs to reflect this evolving nature of quality and your requirements being different over time. Every aspect of what you do, every aspect of your work is subject to this changing dynamic defined by quality, defined by your requirements. And you need a framework, or at least our clients need frameworks, okay, to manage this, to monitor it, to report on it, and to give them the insights that they need to make more meaningful decisions quickly, but also cost effectively. And as I keep on saying, in our case, it's not just human intervention, it's also a lot of automation to bring down the cost, to make it more accurate, to take away the potential errors, and to do so in a way that allows people to very, very quickly make the decisions that they need to make and communicate those decisions to the required development experts and teams that they're working with. So we are really about, we're really at the end now. I think we've got two more things that we'd like to share with you. The first one is the idea of we've already offered you the chance to take part in part two, but we also have the offer of allowing you to have short discussions with myself or Alex or any member of the team around these this area to learn a bit more, even outside of part two, and of course to help you to develop your quality assurance framework. but also to help you with a bespoke agreement template if you need help with that. And you can book time in a calendar through that link that you can see on the screen now, I think. And I think we've got 10 minutes for questions. If anybody has questions, I've been rambling on, I'm afraid. We've got a few minutes, so let's open up the floor to questions if anybody has questions. No, Alex, can you? I can't operate the. For some reason, my yes, you're frozen.
Haven't got any questions at the moment, so still waiting for anyone.
Okay.
We may actually do a quick poll if you don't mind. So what I'll do is just to get an understanding if people are I'm just interested to see what stage you are in your sort of project, or are you planning to start a project? Are you already running one, or planning to start very soon? Okay. Okay, it's just for us to understand a bit more. I think I'll close the poll.
Okay.
Although, yeah, well, I have to say we only got partial response to this one, so yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So, Alex, thank you very much. Lucas, Kevin, thank you too. Audience, we will hopefully see you in part 2, and maybe at another one of our events in future. But for now, goodbye everyone, and we will see you again at some point in the future.
Yeah, thank you all, and yeah, all the best.